A viewer sent in a question asking, how do I choose between direct and ray interactions? I'm experimenting with UI that are objects opposed to traditional UI. I see two parts to this question, direct versus ray interaction and 3D objects versus traditional 2D UI panels. That's a very good question, and I'll be answering it in this video. I'll explain the difference between direct and ray interactions. I'll share some pros and cons of each, and I'll give you some recommendations to keep in mind when you're trying to decide whether to use 3D objects or traditional 2D UI panels in your spatial experience. So let's get started. Direct interactions let you manipulate digital objects directly with virtual hands, such as grabbing objects, pushing buttons, and touching panels. The benefit of using direct interactions for digital objects is that it feels more natural than ray interactions. This is how we interact with objects in the real world, so our brains expect to be able to manipulate 3D objects in digital space the same way. The problem comes in when you have objects that are further away and you can't reach them. That's where ray interactions come in. Ray interactions use a laser or ray to manipulate digital objects from a distance. This is great since you can reach objects both near and far without a lot of extra effort or movement. The problem with ray interaction is that it's less natural way to interact with objects, and if you constantly have a ray pointing out of your virtual hand, it could potentially become annoying. It could also break immersion if you're going for a fully immersive experience. The second part of the question is around when you should use 3D objects versus traditional 2D UI panel, and then should it be a ray or direct interaction? Short answer is it depends. It's not always a cut and dry answer. This is why testing and research with your target audience is so important. Study your target audience, make some variations with rapid prototyping, and do some play testing sessions with them to see what works for them and their specific use case. I have conducted some research of my own, and I've observed that if you have virtual hands with hand tracking in your experience, direct interactions tend to be more natural and intuitive than ray interactions, since people will need to learn gestures to use ray interactions. Whereas if you're using controllers, regardless of whether you have virtual hands or your hands are replaced with another object, such as the Beat Saber handle, ray interactions seem to be less of an issue. And sometimes, depending on the physical design of the controller, ray interactions are actually easier than direct interactions. But again, verify that with your own target audience and hardware, because both of these factors directly affect the experience. As far as 3D objects versus 2D UI, I do recommend that you challenge yourself and think outside of the virtual 2D box when you're creating spatial experiences. Ask yourself, is what I'm designing for spatial computing or immersive experiences better than what's possible in real life or in 2D devices like phones, consoles, or computers? When would it be more beneficial for elements to be in 3D? Would it take more steps to pull up a 3D object from a 2D screen than it would to just show the 3D object and let people interact with it directly? Think of shopping for shoes. If you were to use a 2D UI, it would take multiple clicks for you to find the shoe you want and then bring up a 3D model to see it. This is completely unnecessary. Just let them grab the shoe. It's much more compelling interaction, just like a well-designed physical store. Regardless of whether you're designing for augmented, mixed, or virtual reality, you don't want to just lift and shift a 2D experience onto an XR headset without any additional thought. Take advantage of the strengths of 3D spatial computing and mitigate the weaknesses of your target headset. I talk about this in my video on designing across platforms. I'll share the link in the show notes so you can check it out after this one. Coming up next, I'll give you an example and some technical recommendations to keep in mind when you're trying to design your spatial experiences. But before that, like this video and let me know in the comments what your questions are about XR UX design, and I may answer your question in a future video, just like this one. So here's a quick example comparison of two VR-based tabletop RPGs. Both of these experiences use cards and dice. Catan VR uses a 2D UI to manage your cards and roll your dice, whereas Demio uses 3D dice and cards that you can grab and move around. Surprisingly though, they both use ray instead of direct interactions. Interesting. Let's stop and think about why they both may have made that decision. If you watch the gameplay, you'll see that both require you to be able to reach and grab small objects from a distance. The tabletop is large, and if it were in real life, it would require a lot of standing up up, leaning and reaching, or even climbing to get to everything. And thinking about the size of the game objects, small digital objects are generally harder to grab than larger ones, especially with direct interactions. Try this in real life. Line up a bunch of really small objects on a table, then put on work gloves and try to grab one of those objects without bumping all the others. Not so easy, is it? In order to make a small object easier to grab with direct interaction, your grabbable area, or collider, would have to be much larger than the 3D object. Ray interactions provide much more precision for small objects and give you more reach for large play surfaces, so they're perfect for this kind of use case. Now let's talk about their decision to go with 2D UI versus 3D objects. I haven't had the chance to interview either of these game makers to find out why they made their design decisions, so I can't speak on their behalf. So these are my own observations. Since Catan VR has a 2D UI, it doesn't require any large movements outside of physical comfort zones. On the other hand, since Demio uses 3D game objects and cards, there are more movements. Sometimes those movements require you to move your arms and shoulders at awkward angles to reach what you're trying to grab. So think about the physical comfort for games that you're going to be playing for long periods of time. Ask yourself, am I going to be causing physical discomfort by designing the play space and interactions this way? And like I said before, think about whether 3D objects or 2D UI is going to be more compelling for your target audience. If we did our research on our tabletop RPG fan base, we would know that they really love their dice. As a real-life tabletop RPG gamer, I can attest to this. As dice junkies, we prefer to roll our dice physically, which means 2D UI dice rolling would not be as compelling. Researching and understanding your target audience is very important to help you decide which direction to go with your interactions. And now finally, here are some important technical things to keep in mind when you're designing your spatial experience. If you're designing a fully immersive experience and you're concerned that the ray interactor may break immersion, you could design the ray line visual to meet the aesthetics of your experience and integrate that into the narrative. If you're using both ray and direct interactions, if the technical design isn't done well, it can get annoying quickly and can even interfere with the interactions. MRTK uses both ray and direct interactions if you want to try out their demos and study how they handle it. Regardless of whether you're using ray or direct interactions, keep the main interactions and critical elements in the player's head comfort zones so that they're easily noticed and physically comfortable. Also remember that the further away the object is from the viewer, the bigger the target area needs to be, since interactions from a distance tend to be less accurate. You can click on the screen right now to learn more about cross-platform design, and check the show notes for links to more videos and articles about physical comfort, preventing eye strain, UI elements, and designing across technology platforms. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one.